Very good. All right. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Basting.
Here.
Bush.
Here.
Dolphin.
Here.
Gunlaw. Here. Hay. Here. Steffes.
Here.
Stevenson. Here.
Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start with recognitions. Valedictorian and salutatorian.
Members of the board, I'd like to introduce the valedictorian, Jalissa Wire, and salutatorian, Haley Chubb. A year ago, if you remember, you'd asked me if there'd ever be a chance for a tie. And I said, there's a very good chance for a tie. Both young ladies tied with a 4.0 GPA after 7 semesters. And we actually had to go to a second and third step in the tiebreaker to determine who would be the valedictorian and salutatorian of the class. So a very competitive class, both young ladies with a 4.0. I proudly present Jalissa Wire and Haley Chubb.
I'm going to say hi over here first, and we're going to have to go around the board, and the board would love to shake your hand, so congratulations.
Mitch or Vicki, introduce yourself.
Sydney Staber, or WIA Scholar Athlete. There were 861 scholar athletes nominated in the state of Wisconsin. The criteria for the award is to receive at least 4 varsity letters, have a GPA of 3.0 to 4.0, and Sydney was then one of the 32 finalists selected, our very own MPHS Sydney Staber. So out of those 861, there's 16 male and 16 female, so it's quite an accomplishment. Sydney currently has 11 varsity letters, which soon will be 12 at the end of track season, so that's also an accomplishment. So you can read more about Sydney. She has a bio on the WIA website, also on our Facebook page, and if you are on Twitter, you can also read it. So congratulations, Sydney.
Okay, academic, all-state team. Linda Gross.
Every year, coaches around the state can nominate their student athletes for the all-academic award. You have to submit your tournament roster, so all 15 girls that were on the tournament roster, you figure out their GPA and the number of credits that they have completed, multiply that, divide out by the number, and then that gets your team GPA. Mineral Point's GPA this year as a basketball team, 15 girls, was a 3.819. I've always enjoyed coaching girls basketball because they are the scholar and the scholar athlete. These girls always take homework with them to basketball games, road trips, varsity studying when JV are playing, JV are studying when varsity's playing. And I'll also very proudly point out that our team GPA is higher than any boys team that was winning a similar award by at least 1 percentage point, or 1/10 of 1 point. So 3.7 was the best any boys team had. So I'm proud to present our first place Division 14 Academic All-State.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Good job.
All right, man, stay so.
This is some of our crew from State's Ensemble. A lot of them had sports event sites they were able to be here. So they participated a week and a half ago. And Newby Platteville competed, and all of them got first and second places. They were here today. So good job, everybody.
Come over here. Come shake your hand. Congratulations. Congratulations. Well done. Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Well done.
Good job. So funny.
We left Matt Nevers behind as he is the recipient of our next award, and it's my honor and privilege to recognize Matt Nevers as the Herb Kohl Foundation Fellowship Award winner for the state of Wisconsin. This is a pretty neat award in that it's one that is, first of all, nominated by either a parent, a teacher, a colleague, administrator, and then it goes through a vetting process where Matt was competing against teachers across CISA 3 to be honored and the recognition to go on to the state level and be compared and work against many of the best teachers across the state. And very few actually receive the level of actually receiving the fellowship honor, and Matt is the first that I've ever had the privilege to work with. So it's a pretty special accomplishment. Mr. Kohl, Senator Kohl, past Senator Kohl was there firsthand to make that presentation, and he was attended with his mom and dad. It was a very special event. And along with that comes a stipend for Matt and for the school of $6,000. So that's a pretty generous gift by the Kohl Foundation. So congratulations, Matt Nevers.
FBLA.
Oh, this is forensics, actually. Yep. I have all the loud kids in the hall, because we're the speaking team, so I keep telling them to be quiet, move down, but nobody listens to me, so. We had over 37 kids on the team this year, and that includes, some of the groups have 5, 2, 3, so 37 of those kids fit into 24 different groups, and 21 advanced to the state competition. So we did really well, very proud of them all. And it's very tough. Our school is different. We are unique, believe it or not. A lot of the other schools, the kids that do forensics are just forensics, where if you look at my kids, like you said, it's the same kids coming in and we're all battling, trying to grab, and they're all athletes. At one point, I had the entire, girls basketball team, and they're in tournament, and I'm trying to make them practice for forensics and asking Mitch, can they skip a practice? We have to, no, Kristen, we're going for the regional championship. Absolutely not. So
long story short, fantastic kids and everything, and we're very blessed in Mineral Point. So here's my state forensics team.
Well done.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. Oh, now we're on the FBL.
Hi, so I'm Kip Bakken. I am the advisor for Future Business Leaders of America. And this year we took we had seven qualified for state competition. We had 6 that were able to attend. You can see them pictured there. We had Sean Moline, who competed, let's see, I want to get it right here, in cybersecurity. We had Ethan Dickler, who was in business law, and Ethan is here tonight. We have Max Paulskill, who competed in job interview, and he is at soccer practice tonight. Caden Jackson, who competed in networking concepts. Cole Wilson and Mitchell Schaff competed on a team in publication design. We did not have any state finishers, but they placed very well. They competed very well, learned a lot, went on a couple of marketing tours, interacted with other students, had a great time. So, Mitchell and Ethan here.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations, Ms. Bakken.
Skills USA.
She'd have been back to back to back. FBLA skills, but then also.
This is our Skills USA club, or as whoever showed up. And we had 3 teams that placed top 10 out of 150 in team problem solving. And we have a team that qualified for nationals.
Come right down here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good job. Congratulations. Congratulations. Well done. Again, Skills USA is led by Mr. Kyle Carey, so I want to thank him as well.
This is the end of recognitions.
That is.
We'll move on to organization of business. You want to do that?
Sure. Nominations are now accepted under organizational business for election of officers. We start with the position of president and work our way through vice president, clerk, and treasurer. Each position serves a term of 1 year, and we will ballot for those 4 positions unless there's unanimous consent at a given position. So we would start by opening the floor for a nominee. You can nominate yourself or another for the position of president.
I'll nominate Larry Snacks for president. I'll second that. I move that we close nominations and just make it unanimous.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Next is Vice President.
Nominations for vice president?
I'll nominate Lisa.
I'll second. So a motion and a second.
Move to that also be closed.
Closed session. Okay, closed the nominations by Jeff. Do you have a second to that?
I'll second.
Second by Andy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Lisa. Motion was unanimous. And then clerk. Sure, Larry, were you our last one? You were our last, or year, was last? 2 years, okay. A motion nominate for clerk.
I'll nominate Larry.
I'll second that.
Motion by Jeff and a second by Julie to nominate Larry Dolphin.
I move to close nominations.
Okay. Motion by Jeff. Second by
Kelly.
Kelly. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations, Larry. Treasurer. I believe Glenn's our last treasurer.
He was.
I will nominate Kelly then.
I'll second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Andy to nominate Kelly. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Motion carried. Congratulations, Kelly.
You did.
All right. Secretary of the board. Angie has been our secretary. Anyone make a motion to nominate anybody? Angie has been so.
I nominate Angie.
I'll second.
Motion by Lisa, second by Julie. On favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations, Angie. Establishment of board meeting dates and times.
Annually, the board establishes the dates and times for regularly scheduled meetings. Currently, the board meets the second Monday of the month, and that should reflect 6:30 PM. It was at one time 7:30, but we copy and paste this going forward, we came in at 7. So 6:30 PM is our current time, second Monday of the month. So we would look for either a continuation of the same or a change if so desired. And I'd ask the board for consideration on our July 10th date. We have travel plans with our family. If possible, I'd like to propose that July, if it stays on the second Monday, moves to the following, which would be the 17th, if that would be agreeable. If not, I'm sure we can find some other workable plan. But take that into consideration as you put some dates forward.
I'll make a motion to leave it on the second Monday at 6:30.
6:30. Motion by Jeff, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Larry, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Determining board member salaries.
Go ahead. You want to take it?
The last 2 years, we have been at a $50 monthly meeting pay. Just for information. Any suggestions? We need a motion, I guess, to continue that.
I think last year you agreed to do an annual $600 per member.
She's right. I'll make a
I
motion.
feel like you can't do monthly, but you can do an annual or per meeting.
Okay, all right.
I'll make a motion to do the 600 for the year.
I'll second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Julie. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? So we got Lisa and Andy. Anybody else opposed? All right. Motion carried. Appointment of standing committees. The last 2 years, we have had 4 standing committees. We have nominated a chairperson and a vice chairperson for each one of the 4, and then all the board was voting members of all committees. the way it's been done for the last 2 years. We can go back to the way it was done prior to that, which was 3 or 4 people on each committee, 3 people per committee, with still a chairperson. Any thoughts? I support the way we've done the last 2 years. I think it's, we elect a chairperson and a vice chairperson of each one of the 4 committees. And then the entire board is a voting member of each committee,
Okay.
if you wish to attend.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that.
It seems good.
Okay, all right. So, chairperson of operations.
I like operations. Can we suggest, can we?
There we go, let's just do it now.
Yeah, I volunteer.
To be the chairperson of operations. All right. How about a vice chairperson? Larry?
How about you, Larry?
That's fine. All right. So in operations, Kelly is chairperson, Larry Steffes as
Can I
vice.
just ask what the role of the vice chairperson? It's just the same as the vice president, if the chairperson can't stand in at a meeting.
Generally, we haven't scheduled a meeting unless the chair and vice chair can be.
Yeah, right.
Because they're the committee, so at least the committee of 2 is present to carry a conversation
Okay.
forward.
Policy, and Lisa has been our policy chairperson. Would you continue, Lisa?
Yeah, I will continue.
All right. Vice chairperson? Joe?
Sure.
Personnel? Jeff is chairperson. Andy is vice chairperson. Sure. Unless you want to be chair. Oh, I didn't know that. And finance? I'm open.
And you want to shake something?
Sure.
Chair of finance?
Sure. Sounds good.
Larry be vice chair?
Probably should take a vote just to solidify it. I think we've got agreement, but I have chair and Kelly Gunlock, vice chair Larry Steffes on operations, policy chair Lisa Hay, vice chair Julie Stevenson, personnel chair Jeff Fasting, vice chair Andy Bush, finance chair Andy Bush, vice chair Larry Dolphin. We need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Got a motion by Jeff, do we have a second? Second by Larry, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Appointment of CISA 3 delegate. Is this for the, this is for Fenimore business, right?
Yeah. This is for Fenimore. And I think I might have sent this out, but this is actually embedded in state statute, that there is a chairperson that, from each board that represents the CISA 3 agency. And then there's actually a convention that's scheduled annually. I can give more information about that, but it's embedded in state statutes 11602 that we have a chair for CISA 3, or a delegate representative.
Anybody want to volunteer to be the CISA 3 delegate? I will be. Kelly, want to be the alternate?
I want to do this.
Oh, that was the delegate, okay. Anybody want to
Yeah,
be
that's
alternate?
fine.
That's right. I'll be the,
Okay.
I'm all right.
WASB delegate,
I'll do that.
Kelly.
Did you want to do it?
No, I was nominating you.
Anybody else?
Okay, we should just take a vote on both of those.
So who was the CISA one?
CISA 3 would be Larry Steffes, and WASB would be Kelly Gunlock, and a motion to confirm both of those.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Jeff, do we have a second? Second by Julie, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Official board photo. You want to do that right now?
I got back in my minutes.
Here, one more time.
It's up to you.
We usually do it now, but it doesn't matter.
If we do go into closed session, it might,
Yeah.
yeah, it might not be a bad idea.
So
This
just,
time Larry and I were dressed alike.
is anybody wearing the same thing this year?
No. I remember Larry and I had both khaki.
Okay, we'll do
Okay,
that,
don't
just
forget.
in between our regular session and closed session, we'll have a photo, so we'll take that.
Just keep it.
Yeah, that's right.
Approval of minutes. A motion to approve
I'll move to approve.
minutes. Motion by Lisa, do we have a second? Second by Julie. Did that include that budget meeting from last?
It did, I believe.
Okay, so both sets. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Communications.
You have them both in front of you, then Larry, don't forget.
Board communications received. Anybody? All right. Citizen communications. All right, we'll move on. Business services, credit card, statement of activity, and bills payable. We will make a motion to approve both. Do we have a motion?
Almost.
Motion by Julie, do we have a second?
I will.
Second by Kelly, discussion? Questions? Larry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I can't find it. Yeah, on one from Matt Renke, the one that's to be reimbursed, and Annabelle Hotel. I think that's what it says, to be reimbursed.
I can
Sure.
speak to that, yeah. There should be a check coming from a third party to pay for that. And Marcia and I have been in touch with them. It should be, the check is sent out, we're just waiting for it to come in.
And that's to cover for what you were doing out there?
Correct.
Any other questions? All right, can you get your roll call?
Stevenson,
Yes.
Basting, Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes. Employee services.
We have two items for employee services. The first is approval of a final notice of non-renewal for Kelly Ritchie for a 1.0 FTE or full-time equivalency for an interpreter at Mineral Point at the end of the 16-17 school year. This is a non-renewal for budgetary and staffing reasons. At this time, we do not have a student for her to work with in interpreting services. That may change in the future, and if so, we certainly want to recall her. But at this time, we would ask for approval of the non-renewal. The second is the approval of retirement. Pam Anderson has asked for retirement rather than a change in assignment effective at the end of the 16-17 school year.
Let's do these separately. Let's do the Kelly Ritchie one first. Do a motion to accept the non-renewal. Motion. Motion by Jeff, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Larry, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of Pam Anderson's retirement. Do we have a motion to accept that? Motion by Kelly, do we have a second?
I'll second it, go ahead.
Second by Julie. Any discussion?
Did she accept the buyout
Yes.
program?
I certainly want to extend my thanks to Ms. Anderson for her years of service and to Ms. Ritchie also.
I agree.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried. Items for information and discussion, School Safety Committee report.
The School Safety Committee, Mr. Renwick has been working with the committee and has a short presentation to share some of the work to date and some of the recommendations. You want to start? Yeah, whichever you feel comfortable, yeah. Come on up if you want to pull up a chair or stand, whichever, we can make room for you.
I don't want people up.
And next to Angie. Yeah, pull a chair up next to Angie.
Okay, great. So we started in, I believe it was March. We started looking at safety and security in the district. Our first session was just talking about what our goals were, what our questions were, and then through those questions try to find the information we needed to start pursuing more information for that. So the second session, we actually went into priorities. We had some information about school safety. We knew we had resources. We knew our questions. And then what we really wanted to do was kind of hone in on what exactly we wanted to know. So we did some priority activities, what's a priority for us as a district, what should we focus on. There's so much to it. I'm sure you can imagine that we really wanted to keep it focused. The last session, we did get a nice report from EMC Insurance, and you've seen that. And that last meeting, we just took time just to sit down and look at the information and just. They made it clear in there that this is not like everything you have to do. This is what they recommend, but for example, having doors locked at all times and shut. That's not reasonable when the weather gets to be 80 degrees. That's just not something we can. And I regularly go into classrooms. I don't like to disrupt instruction, so I like to be able to pull the door open. So that was an example of where we said, we understand, but we're not going to follow that. So using this information, what we know about security now and from the report, that's the one is we dismissed the locked doors at all times. It sounds like Mineral Point has had a motion detector, motion sensor security system at one time, and it was not, it just wasn't working. The evacuation emergency kits for each classroom we dismissed. We did like the idea of educating guest teachers when they come in and they know the procedures and things like that. How we do that though, we're not sure yet, so we tabled that for later. And then recess security. We're constantly addressing that, and looking how we can improve that, but we tabled that for future evaluation. So, things that we could just do without really costing anything or make immediate changes is, Roger's already put cones, different just items to prevent people from coming down to the lower part of the parking lot by the recess doors. Tomorrow night I have a meeting with staff. I'm just talking about morning and afternoon recess supervision, just making sure if you've got one staff member, you keep him on this playground. If you've got two, you can spread out wider, just really use common sense. Assess the bus drop off and pick up. I monitor that. I also have some concerns about just drop off in the mornings for the cars. Last week I had two kids who got out of the car before the car was even resting. And then myself and Mr. Gordon were right there, but it's not a terribly safe situation, but we don't have any suggestions that would be cost prohibitive to fix something like that. There's some other little things like first names on rosters, student work posted publicly, maybe just first names only. That's a simple shift. Removing the window obstructions and the side doors. You just get kind of used to how things are done, and I understand why staff want to do that. You don't want the kids distracted, but it creates a visibility problem. Locked doors for unoccupied classrooms, no students in rooms, be able for doors to be locked from the inside as well as the outside. Most of those doors are already there. I think there's like 2 rooms left to be fixed, so Roger's aware of it. Label the exterior doors, so if this door is on the south side, it's not south door, it's like door A, door B. So it's more clear for personnel. And then recruit volunteers for recess. I had some concerns about that just because their expectations might not be the same as ours. And having a non-staff member doing that, I didn't feel real comfortable with, but we threw it out there just in case. Secondary, real brief, just change the signage for evacuation outside doors. We talked about making sure that the guests have badges, and we have to have signage for some video cameras, just I think more of a kind of a legal thing, I think. Yeah. So Roger's aware of that too. So, then we started to prioritize just security and safety. Just to remind the board, this is very much a community-driven, involved project. This is certainly not, I don't feel like I'm guiding them toward one resolution or the other. We're looking at information, we're looking at facts. We're saying, okay, what is our priority? What can we do to make sure kids are safe? The number one for the committee, I don't think there was any dissent on this, was route guests through office. Both buildings, elementary first. Elementary because the kids are younger, and it might pose more of a security, safety issue. Very hard for the office staff to be consistent. The cameras are hard. In the report, it said the cameras on the outside, it's hard for them to see who it is. And then you have 1,000 other ways that someone can get in. Kids open the door for someone. A parent comes in, gets buzzed, and lets someone else in. It's just really hard to be consistent. And putting that on the office staff is, I don't know if that's real fair. Go back. They felt like there was a minimal cost to routing through the elementary building. I don't know anything about that work. We had I think Nate Chambers is one person who was familiar with that. He felt it wouldn't be a significant cost, but I can't speak to that. I think from more of a parent perspective, let's do this sooner rather than later. And again, we just wrote down what they were telling us and what we were hearing, and buzzed into the office or the rest of the school. So we realized the high school one, middle school one would be a lot, would be more costly if we were to do that.
Are you talking about a structural change?
Yes. Yep. So what we're looking at is if you come into the elementary building to the left between the two steel doors, there's that brick wall. We talk about putting a door or some kind of a entrance through there and routing them through the office, so that conference room now becomes a kind of a
Vestibule?
yes. Yep. And then we buzz them in through the office door. So no matter who comes in, you're not getting in until you've got your badge, you've signed in. So.
And would there be a barrier between the person in the office and whomever's coming in?
There was a couple things thrown out. One person said, keep that person between the two steel doors and then buzz them in that way. And that was one way to address that. Someone said putting up glass or some kind of a plexi transparent material that would be security level kind of material, similar to you might see at a gas station. I didn't feel like that was very personal. We're a school, so. But again, we were just listening and just trying not to put down any ideas. In the scenario that we talked about the most, no, it would just be they would be coming in, and that's pretty typical, I think, of other schools that go to this kind of a situation, because you want it to be a welcoming environment. You don't want to be so secure that. And I think when you talk to the staff in the office, they understand that it's kind of an inherent risk. Thank you. Any other questions on that? The second one is they have 3M film or any kind of I guess you'd say a bulletproof film you can put on windows, on all outside door windows. Add the security to the doors and windows. So the film, Bill Ottaway shared a video of someone trying to shoot out the glass, and it took them a minute and a half to get through. It basically had to ram the glass with the butt of the gun. So it just delays, and by the time that this person will get through, hopefully resources would arrive. And then add that to the classroom windows too as well. The other thought was to have cameras in all the doors. So if someone is coming in, you can see from the office all the doors, entrances. This, just host an Iowa County meeting to get consistency for county personnel. Learn from other districts. We thought it's probably going to be pretty hard to get everyone on the same page. For example, I visited Spring Green, it's a site visit. They don't even have locked doors. So and then you got Dodgeville, who's very secure. So you've got a wide range of practices. So I don't think any consistency from district to district is as important as communicating to the county, Iowa County Services, this is what we do, and certainly learn from other districts. Look into some programs. The two that were mentioned the most were the ALICE program. It's just an acronym for how to proceed if there was an intruder, and then Safe Schools. Provide de-escalation training, self-defense procedures for office staff. And assess emergency language, just making sure we're speaking plain talk. We're not saying code red, but we're saying there is an intruder, there is an angry individual on the first floor by the office. Then people know. Because you get subs in, they don't know what code red is, or they don't have time to read all the notes. And these are recommended in priority of what we felt was most important. Improve inside classroom security, so locks inside the doors, bolts, locks, secure doors from inside, and assess window access, especially at the secondary level.
Windows tip in, but they don't tip in far enough that if we change the practice and the standard practice becomes if you're in a lower level, students get out the window, there's no way anybody's getting out the windows because they don't open wide enough to allow somebody to pass through.
All right. Is that all?
Yes.
So, mentioned it at the meetings, I've been all of them, Gary, Racky's been at all of them. Andy was able to make the first one. Any other questions about this? This is very much a draft. We're gonna meet one more time and now look at more student wellness and health, kind of the other side of the safety.
I have a question about subs.
Yeah.
I think maybe during the hiring process, they can become up to speed.
Yep.
So you said that they don't have time when they get there, but
Right.
maybe that's part of the, the process of hiring a sub is that
Yeah.
they're well aware of all the safety procedures and they have to know those things.
Yep, that's a good idea.
The hardest thing is a sub isn't just a sub for Middle Point. They might be a sub in Platteville, Dodgeville, Belmont, Darlington, Benton. So I think more in line of, oh, you're a sub for the day. Inside this folder is a copy of some of our emergency procedures. Instead of the expectation of being trained, they at least have a copy of what we would do in a situation.
I've been at some of all schools and you learn pretty fast what each school does.
We talked about a buddy system where if this teacher's out, then, if Carrie's out, then Denise's carries sub, like, and it's Denise's responsibility to take Carrie's sub up to speed. So we've definitely seen that. Yeah.
I saw in the report how you noted the inconsistent procedure for the elementary school versus the middle school, high school. The security is different.
Yeah.
As far as visitors entering at the elementary, you come in, you sign in, you get a badge. Up here, it's not the same system. Is there going to be a change at the middle school, high school to have it be consistent with the elementary? I mean, it's one of those no-cost changes that.
I think that was in this third slide or something, that they were gonna make sure the badges were being issued.
Okay. I just want to clarify if that was going to be district-wide.
Yes. Yes, for sure. The layout of the buildings are also different. I mean, when you come in the elementary, you can't miss the office, whereas in the secondary, yeah, you can walk right past it. I mean, there's signage, but, so that's another reason why funneling traffic from outside in through the office removes all of that from the equation. I realize there's a price tag to that too, so again, these are just recommendations. We're not done yet, we're gonna meet one more time.
The full report is available in the board packet as well as visible for the public so that you have a full transparency of the EMC report and some of its recommendations that are in the process of being implemented. I want to thank Matt for leading this committee and bringing forward some final recommendations as part of that work. In conjunction with this study, I've picked up the book on Columbine, which was 20 years ago. It seems like it was yesterday, but it's already been 2 decades. And some of the lessons that are learned there, and this isn't just exclusively committee focused on an intruder that might have a gun or a weapon, but it certainly has a big focus of why we have such a need for good security in our schools and the importance of routing kids especially that might want to cause harm or do damage through an office. These kids came in with jackets full of stuff that nobody even saw, and it's really important that we have somebody get an eye on everybody that walks into the building before they're into the building at all. So appreciate the work done. We've got some recommendations to come forward yet.
I have a question. not in regards to Matt, but there were some things that, like the lighting and some of those things, that, who's responsible for some of the, you know, the doors and the lighting not being clean or, you know, visible, or bulbs and stuff like that? Who's responsible for that?
Partly, Roger and I will work on a plan to address
those?
the recommendations that were brought forward. Some of them have budgetary components to that that will have to be prioritized with other maintenance requests, but to the point, if it's a safety, security, we tend to escalate those to a priority.
Okay. Thank you.
You draft policy, the 100 series.
I'll start, and then the policy committee, now consisting of member Hay and member Stevenson, can kind of do any other rounding out of what we're at, where we're at. The policy 150, board governance, actually is before the board for a first reading, as the draft that was brought forward last month was revised enough that it was significant, and it was really a redraft instead of an editorial revision of the existing draft. So what you have before us is policy 150 and the current policy 150 on board governance. I would suggest the board take a look at it, read it over, and ask any questions. We'll bring it back for a second reading next month. We can also talk about it during this information discussion period as well. But that would be the same as draft 151.2 that was before the board last meeting. We looked at it, reviewed it, and actually found another sample policy that the policy committee liked better. And so we're bringing forward that sample policy before you for a first read, so you have a full understanding of how it's changed. Any information or discussion on 150 or 151.2? Okay, then moving forward with 153. This is a sample policy on the board's self-evaluation and goal setting. This is a new policy to the board. The board didn't previously have a 153 or didn't have a policy that referenced evaluating themselves or setting goals for the year. So please review that, along with 154, school board advocacy. Again, a new policy and a related rule for the district. There really wasn't a position in the board policy around advocating for certain positions, either with your community or with your legislatures. And that's becoming a more important role in today's world with governance of school boards. So please look through 153 and 154 as a first reading and make recommendations to either hold possibly to review other policies or to advance forward for a second reading.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say, I think 153, the board self-evaluation, that seems like a good idea, something that we can benefit from. 154, however, the school board advocacy, having our school board advocate for issues, I'm not totally in favor of. We sort of went down that road a little bit last year when guns came up, and you know, I don't know that the school board's going to reach a unanimous opinion on certain issues of the day. I think as school board members, if you feel strongly about something, you can go out as an individual and do what you want. But for the school board to reach a consensus and then become advocates for an issue seems to me like, I mean, our meetings go till 11 o'clock, midnight. To add this on, I'm not in favor of it. And so I wouldn't vote for this.
And it seems to be political when we're supposed to be non-political. I agree with you on this. Another thing is that Wasabi, I say it wrong, they are an advocate. I mean, if we need information, they provide it, the DPI provides it, there are different websites. I didn't know if I was understanding this correctly. Have other schools done this? I mean,
I know other schools do it, but if it's in a, you know, I have a friend, she's in Evanston, Illinois. Her school board is very, liberal. They're in agreement across the board. I think it makes sense for them to have that role. I think for us, I just think it would take up a lot of time and accomplish very little.
and what I would like to know is what specific things would we advocate?
I can see us maybe having agreement that, the vouchers are hurt minimum point, which clearly they do. You know, maybe we could, you know, have some agreement on school funding or something.
I feel like there's an opportunity, sorry to interrupt you, at the, you know, WASB convention too, the delegate has an opportunity to stand up. I mean, if there is an issue like vouchers, for example, or something that we wanted to advocate for as a rural district, or, I mean, we absolutely are, right, for or against, right? We can absolutely send, you know, come to that consensus and send our delegate with a message that we would like to be able to read there. I mean, it's an open forum to do that.
Independent people, we also can do that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I
As an
think we're
individual.
effective that, I agree with you, Lisa, on this.
All right.
I agree also. I would make a motion that we throw out one for and spend more time on it.
This item is not scheduled for action. I think it would be appropriate to do so at the next month meeting. And I know it may be a foregone conclusion, but it allows the community to weigh in on this discussion and get the board feedback if they desire something else. And then the second reading would be at the point where we place it for item or action, and the board would probably vote it down at that point, hearing the discussion tonight. But
And if there were ever a scenario that we get unanimous consent among the board, we still could advocate,
Right, we don't need a policy
put it on the agenda.
mandating us to do it.
Right.
Yes.
Policies.
Well, and just for information for all of you, we're working on, I haven't gotten it done, Luke has asked me numerous different times to put together books for each of you with current policies, all of them that have been updated. And this is an old one, but anytime that something new would be passed or agreed upon, then you would get a new sheet to insert into your booklet. So by next meeting, I promise to have one to each of you, so you have your policy Bible binder.
Would it help you if you had my one I was given 6 years ago, or would that?
This
make it
happens to
harder?
be Mo Grimm's, so, I mean, and I have several others in the office. This was just organized nicely, so.
From 20 years ago.
So,
Well, we're required to have those, aren't we, by state
Correct.
code?
We were in the process of converting it all to electronic, and in that conversion, there's some policies that have been approved but not inserted electronically as we move the website over. It didn't migrate over, and then there's some that just never was a hard copy placed in a binder. So we're always going to have a master copy in the office. We'll give each board member a hard copy that they can flip through and quickly see my table of contents, the board policies. And we'll maintain eventually an electronic version that mirrors the master copy. But we want to make sure our master copy is correct first.
So thank you, Lisa, but I think I just need to sift through and make sure we have an up-to-date one, and then give a new copy to all of you.
Staff survey and climate results.
Before the board is the staff survey and climate results, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but it is worth spending some time in that there's some meaningful information I think the board wants to at least recognize. First of all, the staff surveys given to all staff that are members of the district. There are approximately 103 staff members from last year to this year. Last year we had 96 people finish the survey. This year we had 95. So we have a very strong response rate of responses. So I think you can take this as really the sentiment of the entire staff. Out of those 95, there were 4 that didn't start the survey, and there were another, I think, 3 or 4 that started it, just didn't complete or fill in all of the answers. There were partial surveys. We were not able to do any dissection by person and how they weighed in and so forth, but we do have some overall, I guess, categories of things that I can share with the board as far as how we've improved or not from year to year. Now, I would start by saying that there are 76 line item responses, or 76 possible answers that staff could respond to in this entire survey. We won't go through any of the 76, but I would share with you that there was only 3 responses out of those 76 where there was any type of a reduction in the actual survey results from last year to this year. So that means 73 results were up from last year. Of those 3, and I'll share more about those that are up, but of those 3, none of those were considered significant changes. The significant changes were anything that decreased or increased by 0.2 or more. And so out of those responses, there were 30 responses that are considered statistically significant. which increased by 0.3 of 1 point or more. And so I'm going to highlight just some of those for you, just 10 of those that are actually beyond that statistical 0.3 and actually go to the 4/10 mark, and just share those that have raised 0.4 to 0.5 of a point, or a 0.5 point almost in the survey. So let me just get to the right page and we'll get started with those that I think are really noteworthy of some significant changes. So the first is on question 4 of the survey. And in question 4, there were 3 of them that were significantly statistically significant, but the one I want to draw your attention to is the last item, personal goals. There's a process for evaluating the effectiveness of new initiatives. Last year that was ranked at a 2.94, and this year it's at a 3.33, so that's a significant improvement over years past. The next is on question 5. Students have access to additional support when needed. Last year that was a 3.66. This year it's a 4.07, or a gain of 0.4 or 0.41 of a point. And I attribute that specifically to the initiative to add intervention coaches and instructional coaches, specifically at the elementary with a little touch at the 6th grade level, but there's a recognizable difference that we have more supports available to support kids. As we move to question number 9. In question number 9, there was the last item, which is I have had adequate opportunities to participate in decisions that affected me. Last year at 3.27, this year up 41/100ths, up to 3.68. Moving to question number 11 is please indicate your agreement of each one of these items. Down here, I feel supported when I feel supported by leadership when I make a decision. Last year at 3.54, this year up 42/100ths of a point, and feeling more supported. In question 12, there's a couple significant responses here. The first is the district in-service days are organized and well-planned. That was a 3.24 last year, up 0.48 of a percentage. And then the next one down is I receive ongoing and timely feedback that helps me improve my performance. Again, 3.35 up to a 3.81, or 46/100ths of a point. Moving to question number 15. This is probably where we saw most of the increases overall, or some of the highest increases. And this item had to do with building leadership. And the top one is my principal is an effective leader. Last year 3.65, this year 4.16. That's 0.51% or points of a gain. Again, I trust the leadership in my building. Last year 3.56, this year 4.13. That's up 0.57. That's the largest gain of any response throughout all of the survey. And then the last one is building leadership is consistent when administering policies concerning employees. 3.43 up to 3.97, or again a 0.54 gain, 54/100ths. So again, all of these 3 areas are the only areas where we saw a 0.5 point or better gain in all 3 categories. I will wrap up with number 17. Another significant gain is the school board is doing what it takes to make our district successful. Last year 2.82, this year 3.25. So you can give yourself a pat on the back. Again, all 3 of those numbers are up from last year. So just for your awareness.
Still not great.
Yeah, it's definitely showing a good trend though, so I would say we're moving in the right direction. And just because it is the school board, I'll go a little bit deeper. The school board appropriately balances the mission of the district with fiscal responsibility. That is up 0.3%, so that would be statistically significant. It just didn't hit that threshold for those top 10 that I'm sharing with you, so some improvement there. Then I will finish with question 19. This is kind of just some summary. What grade would you give us? 61 participants responded they would give us an A, and 24 would give us a B. Last year at this time, there were only 21 that gave us an A. So we went from 21 to 61, which is a pretty amazing accomplishment. Just again, FYI, there were 10 C's and even 1 D last year. Now we have 3 C's. So bottom has raised significantly, and those that think we have an excellent or exceptional school has really improved. Then on question 20, I think this has a little bit of a discussion point. Those that ranked the school district compared to neighboring public school districts much better. Last year there were 24 people that said it was much better. This response is 45 people said it was much better. So again, a big trend upward in those areas. So that's a quick highlight. Again, the full report is in front of you, so you can go through all the questions. And again, almost every response was up, and those 3 that were down were not statistically significant to be down. So I think overall, the district continues to trend well at the building level, all the way up through the district and board level.
It's nice you had the same survey from last year to this year.
Yeah.
If we didn't have anything that dropped.
Nothing that drops, with any significance.
Okay.
Yeah. So three items dropped either 1 or 2/10 of a point, which is not enough to really merit or ferret out that there's something wrong there. We'll continue to monitor this. The other thing that I would challenge our administrative team to do in the near future is to pick 1 or 2 areas and write a goal around that and try to show improvement for next year. For my personal goal last year, one of them was to be more aware of staff concerns, and that was up 0.3 of a point. The other one for me personally was to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to give feedback following professional development, and that was also up 0.3 of a point. So the 2 areas I picked, we saw some significant improvement, and actually one of those I'll keep as a goal to go forward in being identifying and understanding staff concerns will stay on my radar until it's a place where I feel more comfortable.
Maybe we as a board could use it too, now that we're doing self-evaluation, to pick one of those, 1 or 2, see if we can improve it a little more.
Is there an opportunity to put notes on there of the staff?
We did not open it up for a place to comment.
Okay.
No, there's no, so you're seeing the full survey, there's no other boxes or texts or so forth that took any comments of it.
And it's all, you don't know who's answering, right? It's
Correct.
Blank. It's a
Yep.
blind.
It is blind. It can be desegregated by building if we ran a filter, but we just kept it at the district level as we put it out as a district survey. Certainly principals will be able to use that as part of their evaluation process, so we'll be looking at the building level by desegregated data so that can drive some improvement plans. So that would be in conjunction with the survey that's required as part of their performance evaluation.
Board retreat?
I sent by correspondence as well as a hard copy in front of you, a possible idea around a board retreat and some facility planning work that could be done. And I put a draft agenda in front of you just so that you have a sense of what would happen at a board retreat, why would we need to meet about one. I think it would be a good discussion where we would take it off-site, maybe build it in and around a meal where we could just have a more casual conversation. Retreats are still meetings in the public, and they're still subject to open records and open meetings laws, so we certainly would have the ability for spectators or viewers to come in, but typically it's not well attended, or people don't choose to attend because it's more the work of the board rather than actual business items. The second piece becoming facility planning, I see that more as an opportunity for us to just lay out on the table the direction that we'd like to see the district go over the next decade and start to get some ideas, just passing back and forth in kind of a low pressure conversational way so that we can try to develop some movement going forward. So I put together just a potential date of May 29th. I kind of saw it as maybe a 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock with a kind of a working dinner in between. If we could carve out some time, it doesn't have to be a Monday night, it could be a Saturday morning breakfast or lunch combo, something like that.
That's the Monday after Memorial.
That'd be a bad day.
That'd be a bad day. That's what I
Yeah,
would
let's not plan the 29th, but the idea was to grab I just took the next Monday down the calendar that was open, so if we move it into June, that certainly could be summer work. It's often a lower stress time because we're not in the thick of school and teacher and so forth. It gives us an opportunity to really set some aside time to have some good, meaningful conversation. So I put it out there as an idea. React to it. Give me some thoughts about if you'd like to or not. If the location and or the venue seems to fit. other suggestions on that?
I think it's a good idea because during the forum, that was one of the questions that we were asked. And it seems to me that if one person asks it, there's probably more people asking if we believe in board development. I think if we're going to be professionals and we expect our staff to continue our education, that our board should also do that. And I think the community and the people who elected us want that.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in support. I mean, getting to sort of alignment on ground rules and why we're here and what we are all here to do, even if we have different opinions on different matters, is really important, and it will help hopefully shore up a successful school year.
Anybody opposed?
Do you think it'd be more productive just having it right here in the boardroom? We still can cater in from the Walker House or?
I like outside.
Yeah, it gives it kind of an informal,
I know,
you know.
but
Yeah.
you want to make it productive too, I guess.
I felt, I mean, I was at the, you were there the last year too, at the offsite at the Walker House. Did you feel like that was productive? I mean, I felt like it was good conversation. It made it just kind of.
Yeah, that was kind of a whole different meeting to that meeting.
Yeah. Yep.
There's other venues that certainly can be entertained. The idea of coming around a board meeting room at the board table makes it seem, just out of appearance, as more official and like a special meeting rather than really a retreat where we just can kind of relax and talk more casually about the direction of our school district. So I'll leave the venue up to the board. I'm open. It makes no real difference to me. But traditionally, a retreat has allowed us to get out of the boardroom for a minute and just talk more socially and relaxed. I'll send some dates around, and I didn't hear any opposition, I guess. It's just a matter of picking the venue and the time and the place. Okay.
So we'd be out into June is what
I'm thinking June would be best to get out of the school year a little bit and be out of planting season.
You'll be out of planting? Yeah, okay.
And I think that's a good point, though. I don't mean that, Jess, is that I'd really like us all to be there, so we can all finish that conversation, be on the same page and move forward together. So, pick a date that we all can commit to, and obviously if there's emergencies that come up, so be it.
And you did have some notes for us here, didn't you?
Yeah, it was like draft agenda, just an idea of what it would look like. Scratch the May 29 idea, but
I went to the one of the breakout sessions at WASB was something along the lines of working together as a strong board too. So I can forward that resource to you if I haven't already. But
yeah.
It gave some ideas on just sort of that key
Thank you.
alignment type stuff.
Strategic planning session.
We are at the end of our strategic plan as far as 3 years go. It doesn't mean we can't continue to stretch out the continuing of our existing strategic plan, but 3 years ago, we talked about it in about 3 years, it's probably ready to be renewed. There are some options before the board, and I'll make a recommendation. Brian Cammers, who's now the school board president of the Milwaukee School District, is more than willing to come back to the district and take the next iteration of our strategic plan, knowing our history and working together with us to drive home an updated strategic plan. And I also worked with a person named Mary Gavigan. Mary was a former superintendent in the Oregon School District, and she now is a representative of the CISO 1 in the Milwaukee area. Mary led a strategic planning session as I took part as my role on the board for the Wisconsin State Music Association. And it was a really streamlined process in that it was one afternoon into a little bit of the evening, came back in the morning with a fresh set of eyes and another look at it, and then we wrapped. There was still some work that needed to be done outside of that, and that would be more directed to the administrative team to come up with some goals and focus areas and so forth. But the actual strategic planning that took the community involvement, the board involvement, staff involvement was limited to an evening and a morning. And that really resonated with me because I think last time it just strung out too long and it got really hard to keep momentum going. We lost members along the way that didn't sustain with us to the end. So I think something like that would fit our community better, and I recommend, and I'm happy to reach out to Mary just to see her availability and see if we can start working on some dates. But the board may want that history with Brian and want to work through a more comprehensive solution. I'm not seeing a lot of support for that, but this is your opportunity to talk to Molly, give me some direction. Or anybody else too. There might be land associates or others that do strategic planning that could come in and do this locally. I just don't know of anybody more better.
You set a fresh set of eyes and dots. We would know what Brian brought to the table for us. And it was all good. I'm not saying that there's nothing about it.
Was the streamlined session more, was it facilitated differently in terms of, it wasn't just, so what do you think?
Yeah.
Because I think that was part of the issue with Brian is he was great and I think he understands the school board, but I don't think I don't think he understood engaging adults in learning and trying to brainstorm. It was, what do you think? And then that opens up, it's just too large, right? You need to really focus on what you're trying to get at and drill down on that specific thing.
Yep. The upside to that is that it gets you across the finish line. The downside is you're going to feel rushed and panicked and have to come up with thoughts and ideas and get them on paper and move it forward. But when you get across the finish line, you look back, it's good and nothing has to be permanent. It's just writing on paper that gives us a plan. But it was really a nice job to get it across. It's that old adage, a job takes as much time as you have to do it in. And we did a really nice job in the time that we have. But you're coming focused knowing that this is the time we have. We've got to make the most of it versus Brian setting out almost a year's worth of dates to bring that across the finish line. So.
Well, we have a start now with the work that Brian did.
Correct.
So it can be
some of
just
that
sort
will
of
roll forward and be updated and some of it will fall off.
Yep.
And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 board members who have done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a good base.
That's a great base, yeah. Okay, I'll reach out to Mary and learn more and report back to the board.
When did we do it last time? Was it summer event, winter event? Do you remember?
We started in I want to say it was a summer meeting.
It was September.
At the
And then we might
town.
end it into winter. I mean, it went on.
Yeah.
In like 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we started in September and we got done after the first of the year.
Like one meeting a month, I'm just curious.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, I have the old timeline, but it was stretched out. Right.
Items for action.
The board has annually the opportunity to review all of the full-time equivalency for teachers for the 17-18 school year, make any recommendations for changes. I've shared with the board the anticipated enrollment in grades K through 6. It would be our recommendation to replace Ms. Anderson's retirement by hiring a kindergarten teacher to support a class with a section of 3 staff for 53 kids. Our class average around 17.7. Right now we have 2 staff that are dedicated to the first graders. We will have some literacy supports from Ms. Diefenbach, but no extra supports in math, social studies, or science. So those classes will be 26, 27 in those particular areas. But this is the opportunity to review and think about and reflect and make some decisions around the staffing levels for next year. I did not include 7th and 8th grade or 9 through 12. We basically have 1 teacher for the 7th and 8th grade, science, math, social studies, and we can't reduce any further than the 1. Likewise, in high school, we have 2 teachers, 1 for basically 9, 11, and 1 for 10, 12, and can't really reduce that staff and have them take on 3 classes worth of students and still be able to maintain a normal schedule in a day. So those enrollment numbers tend to flex a little bit more because kids also take multiple course offerings and not all in 7th grade science or 7th grade math, for instance. They start to expand a little bit. Some are in accelerated math, and it shifts those numbers around a little bit. So you've got K-6 before you. I'll answer any questions that you would like. We've got a principal staff here that can also field a lot of your questions or concerns.
So in comparison to this year, that's the same number of staff?
We have the same number of staff, correct. This staff would be comparable to last year's staffing levels.
In the discussion from last week's meeting, personally, I feel the 6th grade is a very comfortable number at 16.7. And we did not take a look at that, did we? This is exactly what you brought us last week.
Correct.
Okay.
Is total enrollment up in the grade school?
No,
This
it stayed flat at roughly 350 students.
Okay.
I'll move that we approve this. I think if we deviate from this, it would require us to change our policy. This is consistent with our policy.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Lisa, second by Jeff. Further discussion? And the policy states
It's right there.
15.
With the, I mean, and there's hedge language in the policy. I mean, it doesn't say you hit 15 and boom, you gotta hire somebody. I mean, it allows for leeway and it allows for the administration to take into account the special needs of a class.
That's kind of that administrative recommended max, is that's a kind of our hedging on the right column there. You know, 15 is not a hard and fast number. We feel in K through 3, for K1, 2, that 18 is still an acceptable size, but after that it does start to get a little bit concerning and we'd like to have a conversation. But to your point, you know, we don't have a hard and fast rule at 15 or 20. That's just a recommended guideline that causes discussions.
So so does any class have 21.5 in it now?
That is the current, or next year's first grade class would be.
Okay, so, but kindergarten has,
They would have 53 kids or across 3 teachers, 17.
okay. Did I make it clear what I asked?
No, so I think you're asking currently,
Does any
what is the
teacher
current
have-
kindergarten?
Does any class have 21.5 K through 4?
Kindergarten currently does.
It does, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think 24 is just a long ways from 15. I mean, if that's our board policy, that's 160% of that. Now that dancing teachers around.
You're talking about if kindergarten went to
Yeah.
2
Or if
sections.
you moved
Right.
what the proposed fix was for not hiring.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, in first grade, we're looking to shift one person's position to provide, I would say, like a 0.4 in that first grade classroom for literacy and mathematics, mostly literacy. So yes, it's 2 staff members in the books, and your kid will be assigned to one or the other teacher, but we're actually going to have almost like another half FTE in the classroom providing support. So there are some needs there. Not enough to go with 3 full teachers.
I just want, if the kindergarten class was comfortable with 21.5, that the first grade class would be comfortable with that.
Yes, we've had quite a bit of conversation.
Okay, good.
They've got a good plan.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Hay,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Basting,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunlaw, Stefas.
No. Certified staff compensation?
The district recommends a total increase in compensation of $53,694. What that would do would be fully fund the current salary schedule for teachers, which would include teachers receiving a CPI increase, they would receive their steps for longevity, and they would receive lanes if they were to receive a master's. And along with that, we did build in some staffing increases. This has a half-time math intervention person. The other half would be funded out of the alternative schools revenue. This would support, much like we have literacy supports right now, K-6, we would like to put in some math supports where kids could get individualized small group attention by a certified staff member. We'd also look to increase Carla Rand's position from 80% to 100%. That would allow us to work with an engagement program to try to pull families into the schools and become more engaged with the learning of their child and the classroom environment. This also takes into account a reduction of an interpreter in our staffing model that was approved earlier this evening, and I think that's everything. What it does not include is additional reading supports, which is something that was brought up in a report from Kimberly and Rachel, is that we'd like to do more interventions around reading, but with the staff that we have, we're getting the kindergarten through 6. We just haven't been able to do 7 through 12 reading, and the halftime math interventions probably wouldn't be able to cover the entire K-12 students and their needs with intervening with math. We'd probably look at where some of our most neediest kids are with math intervention and dedicate the halftime position to those needs first.
I'll make a motion, we approve the 1.54% increase, including the staffing additions.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion by Andy, second by Julie.
Can I just clarify? You said 1.54%,
Correct.
and so that's steps and lanes, and CPI,
Correct.
and the addition.
Yes.
What, if you take out, what is just the steps and just the lanes? Could we know what the breakout would be?
CPI was negative $10,000. It's actually a net reduction because of pulling out staffing with our interpreter services. Even building in back some of those supports doesn't quite compensate fully for the loss of that staff member. And then the 1.54 is really more of a reflection of steps. There's very minimum amounts in credit reimbursement for masters.
So the
So
one.
wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where you go?
I was just gonna, the 1.54 is only that percent because you're taking out the interpreter.
Correct.
Technically, we're higher than that because you're taking that 45 or 50,000 salary out of here. So this is still actually over 100,000.
What we have is...
Because you're gonna get into trouble if you bring the interpreter back, you don't have that money in the budget then.
Yeah, if we want to table some of this discussion into closed session, I can get into actual salaries of each person and show you how that compensation flows.
I need more information.
I agree. And there was a, yeah,
Before we go into closed session, can I ask some other questions that don't have to do with personnel?
Sure.
You said something about credit reimbursement. Does this include any credit reimbursement?
That would have built in some credit reimbursement. We would anticipate that some staff would seek reimbursement, but the lanes are actually what's built into this model, and that would be so the true credit reimbursement would not be reflected in here. That would be a separate line item budget, roughly about $10,000 to reimburse credit. We haven't really been able to ascertain who will or won't take a class and will seek reimbursement if it's offered. We were not offering it this year, so that would be something that we would have to try to solicit, and it's very hard to pin down, but historically, 2 years ago, was roughly around $10,000.
And does it include extra duty? You've got extra duty
No,
in this.
that does not include extra duty, which is something that's down below in the agenda, and that item is separated out at $1,639.
$1,600.
Yeah.
And then you don't know yet who's distinguished.
Correct. We do not know who's distinguished at this point.
And last year, you didn't pay the double step for distinguished.
Correct.
Was that paid the year before?
No, because if I remember correctly, last year was the first year that we had the new salary schedule, or we didn't fund beyond steps or lanes, so it wasn't a consideration.
And the national board certification, are there any?
Yes, there would be 3.
And what would be the payout for that?
$1,500.
And is this included in that?
That is, yes.
So I have a question.
Does the state,
Go
does the
ahead,
state match that 1,500 also?
No, the state has its own reimbursement for national
Or
board.
something?
That's okay. So, for reimbursement, you have, that's a different line, right? And you said
Correct.
you had 10,000 in there?
Correct.
Okay, so I guess my question is, I hope it's appropriate, at the appropriate time. Would we say, of that 10,000, would we break it down by teacher, each teacher get a certain percent? Because obviously, if someone gets let's say the specialist license, we know that that coursework's gonna cost $7,200. So there goes your 10,000. So I would like, I guess what I'm saying is I would want it to be an equitable reimbursement for those who choose to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The credit reimbursement language is spelled out in the employee handbook, and I believe it's maxed out at $750 per person.
Okay. So does that get used every year?
It did not get used last year because it wasn't budgeted for. The board did not include that as part of the budget development process.
So it's in their handbook, but it wasn't budgeted for, but now we're putting it back in the budget.
That would be my recommendation, yes.
I agree.
On the interpreter position, some of them dollars were flow-through dollars, though, too.
80% of that position is federally reimbursed by Title I, but that's not flow-through.
All right.
Let's go through
Or we would get transfer of services.
We would receive transfer of service if we were to rehire from a student transferring into the district that had interpreting needs
For the first year.
for continuous years, as long as we had that service.
If they were open enrolled.
No, if they were to reside here.
Your budget assumes an increase in per pupil.
It assumes the governor's proposal of an increase of $200 in the first year and $204 in the second year of categorical aid.
And when would you know whether that's going to happen?
That timeline is very hard to speculate. I know that the Joint Finance Committee has decided not to take up school funding this week, so minimally they wouldn't address it till next week. And then if there is consensus, it would eventually be put forward to the governor for signing in the final budget. Because of the transportation woes that they're encountering, I would not expect, just in my opinion, I wouldn't expect anything prior to mid or latter part of July. Every district across the state is stuck in not knowing the revenue that they are going to receive from the state until after they have to approve a preliminary budget, basically for purposes of preparing for the school year. It's one of the most backwards scenarios that school districts work through.
Why couldn't we approve credit reimbursement, extra duty, double steps for distinguished, the board certified, do all of those things, pay all of those. And then if we get the $200 reimbursement, then agree to do steps and lanes. Have a contingency in place.
That certainly can be done. The challenge is we issue a contract for staff, and then they would sign and return that contract with a guaranteed amount in their base salary and then supplemental salary. And issuing a double set of contracts is just time consuming. And then the second component would be payroll. It starts July 1st for a new fiscal year. And if the governors doesn't approve the budget, there could be one or two payrolls that would have to either be back paid or I think it would probably be, if they receive the funds, they would have to back pay or pay it back to the district, or we would have to issue a secondary check to make up for the loss of revenue. It would make more sense to have it right going forward and then build a budget around that, because then there's not additional labor work to rectify the situation.
It makes sense unless you don't get the $200 per pupil.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're in a bind.
God
So
forbid, we
every-
could end up with zero.
Well, everybody's going to be like that.
Well, just because everybody's doing that doesn't mean that we have to.
In your contract, you have agreed that you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and some of those things that you're talking about putting in the budget now are steps 4, 5, and 6. They're down the list if money's available. They're not in what you've agreed to do in the contract as this is the first thing we're gonna fund, here's the second thing we're gonna fund. We have it on the board now.
Sorry, Mitch, if we don't get that, I would be in favor of looking elsewhere for those savings and reward our staff for the distinguished district that we have.
I'm sorry, so what do you say?
I would be in favor, if we get to that point where that doesn't come through, I would be in favor of us looking other places. To me, this is our most important piece of the budget, and I think we have staff that have earned
I agree with Ian.
this step.
My only concern is that even with the $200, we're only looking at a $41,000. That's what you projected, right? So if you lose the $200 to zero, you're talking lots of money.
We're talking about $58,000 to fund these top 3 CPI steps and lanes. And then the board could always choose at a later date to award credit reimbursement or the extra duties separate, that we can line item out, but
I think that's kind of what Lisa's saying, isn't it, Lisa? To do what we can and
Yeah, do what we can, do those. Can we do 4, 5, 6, 7? And then hold off on the other ones till you know?
oh, no, we're gonna do CPI and step lanes.
Do
first.
CPI and then 4, 5, 6, 7.
the discussion that was negotiated at the time, we could certainly relook at this for a future compensation model, but that it would be in this priority. So you would fund CPI and then steps and then lanes until the point where you say stop. And if you want to go to credit reimbursement, you do 1, 2, and 3 before you put 4. This is the staff's priority of how they want to be funded in order. And that was what was.
When you say negotiated, my recollection is this was something that was agreed to 3, maybe 4 years ago. And it was presented as a temporary scenario.
That is correct. The board approved this until such time that they would approve something else. So this is the working framework that we have.
Is the board bound by that step? Do we have to take those steps in that order?
That's the final board action, was to adopt this salary schedule, yes.
Because of the teacher priorities, because of the teacher input of it. So if you want to change that, I mean, do you want to go against what their priorities are?
Well, it certainly would be very appropriate if you want to look at this changed, is to direct, me to re-resurrect a committee and come back with a recommendation that the board can give some input and feedback on.
Here's the thing that I really don't like. I don't like that teachers who get a distinguished rating aren't being compensated for it. That it's so far down on the list and that they haven't received anything for it the last couple of years. And instead, you're funding steps and lanes, and that's just, an increase that everybody gets. That's my view.
That's also why I think longevity shouldn't be built in for your steps all the way up.
Okay, my question is, educate me on what makes them distinguished and what they had to do to get that.
So the state is under an evaluation model. There's one of 2 that you can use, the Strong model and the Danielson model. We are under the Strong model, and in the Strong model it has 6 strands of what are considered a proficient or model education teacher. So this is for certified staff. It would also include a different set of standards, but it would have a faction for educational specialists, which would be your special services like OT, PT, and interpreting and so forth. And then there's also administrator component. Each person has an evaluator. It consists of a formal observation, 2 informal observations, a survey, looking at data, student growth. There's a documentation along with artifacts. These things are reviewed every 3 years. And if they meet one of 4 criteria in a rubric for what good teaching looks like, they could potentially receive a distinguished mark. In the past, that number has been between 7 and 14 teachers at any given year.
And is there any, so it's all, it's based on a model, the STRONG model. It's measured by the administrators?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So Lisa, what you're saying is that those teachers are not being rewarded monetarily?
They're being paid the same as, I mean, if there's a teacher who is, developing or is on an improvement plan, they would be getting the same compensation adjustment.
So, steps, so CPI, steps and lanes, which ones, steps are longevity and lanes is?
Yes,
Yeah, masters.
Pardon?
Masters.
Okay, yep, okay. Do you want, I mean, if this was done 3 years ago, does the staff need to reevaluate their priorities? Do you know what I mean? I mean, you have a valid point.
I don't know if when the staff came up with this rubric, they knew that distinguished was going to not get paid for years.
Well,
Um,
a lot of unknowns.
So maybe it is something that they would like to look at. Maybe this is something that we should talk about next month, put on the agenda, get some feedback.
Yes.
So a couple things. I think it's no surprise that no National Board Certification teachers have 3 members to this district. And so when a vote comes down to 60 certified staff members, many are not going to vote for that to be ahead of something that they might receive. It's somewhat self-serving in that you're looking at it from your lens, and that's not right or wrong, it's just what your priority.
Yeah.
Likewise, the double distinguished, or a double step for distinguished summary is less than 10% of the staff.
Well,
so those things aren't naturally going to rise to the top.
Right.
But it was a staff vote that said these, if we do need to prioritize, the
Yep.
staff has spoken.
Well, and to that, it's a choice, it's a choice. I would agree, credit reimbursement is, more important.
The second piece to that is that this is
In the priority,
this is the salary schedule that was posted and approved in the employee handbook going forward for this year.
yes.
So if we were to
So
make
it
changes
is.
for that, we would
Okay.
make it for the subsequent year. We wouldn't necessarily change it.
So this has already been approved by staff
As part of the employee handbook.
And by the board. if it was-
and by the board, okay?
And I think the bigger discussion here is, it sounds like, is do we want to look at changing the compensation model going forward? I don't think May is a good time for 17-18, but I'm hearing there may be some board concern about the compensation model, and maybe we assemble another teacher compensation committee. Maybe the board discusses either a hybrid or a distinguished, effective, average compensation model, because I think you have some valid points. I also think the significant number of effective teachers that we have that are doing their job really well but not distinguished probably have also earned their step. So I think it's hard to determine which
Right,
one.
and I
Yeah.
don't disagree.
Yep.
So I have a question on credit reimbursement, so that 10,000, so let's say I want to get a specialized degree, and it takes me 2 or 3 summers, is it a one-time deal, or can I submit every year?
You can submit every year, pending that the funds are available,
Okay,
and that's determined by the board in their authorization of the annual budget. So 2 years ago, they committed up to $750 per teacher for credit reimbursement. Last year, they afforded nothing. So it's a year-to-year as you work through a program.
and how much is it, how much is 3 credits?
$1,500.
Depends where you go.
Yeah.
But I, yeah, I'm thinking 300 a credit.
Yeah, it doesn't fully, maybe on the cheap side.
Yeah, that'd be cheap side.
Yeah.
I'm fixated on this credit reimbursement just for a while.
So to get back to the certified staff compensation, does the board want to go into closed session to dig into that?
Yeah,
And do we want to do that at this point in the agenda? Or do we want to wait till the end? I can't foresee us taking more than 20 minutes or so.
no, our 20 minutes gone.
If we have staff waiting in the hallway, we'll push it along rather fast.
The other night, Luke said a half an hour, it was 3 hours, so.
It was well worth it.
Yeah, I mean,
It was.
arguing that, but it's
What's the
like-
wish of the board?
Personally, would like to do it now because we are
Are
this
on
far
it,
down talking about it.
So there's a motion on the table yet, do we
I move
rescind
that we
that?
go into closed session.
Andy, you made a motion to rescind it? To
I
closed
can't,
session?
yes.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, Lisa made a motion to go into closed session. Do we have a second? Also, I will second by Larry. Closed session.
That is in your projected budget as an expense.
Question is whether we withdraw it or not, depending on what happens.
We are back in open session. We are on certified staff compensation. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
Okay, so we're back to the recommendation.
I'm going to make a motion to an increase in compensation of 55,194.40, overall increase of 1.58%, including staffing additions for the halftime math and the .2 for school counselor, not including the double step for distinguished, which will be voted on by the board at the time that the distinguished ratings come out.
To clarify, that does not include interpreting, is that right?
Correct, that does not, yes, my apologies, that does not include the interpreting position that we don't currently have, but anticipate may need if somebody moves in.
I'll second.
Motion by Andy, second by Julie. Any questions, discussion? Roll call.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Hay,
No, not because I don't think that the teachers are deserving, but just because of the statement I made earlier about waiting till July.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Basting,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes.
And Luke, you have that full motion?
I do.
Okay. I got the 1.5.
It's a little wordy.
Okay.
I didn't get it either.
Yeah.
You got it on tape too.
Okay.
All right. Added schedule?
The additive schedules before the board, last year, that schedule was frozen, did not receive a CPI increase of 0.12% of 1%. This year, adding in the 1.26% for CPI and the 0.12% of 1% last year gives you an overall increase of 1.38%. In actual dollars, that translates to an increase of $1,639. The district would recommend approval.
Do we have a motion for the additive schedule? And this is
It's on page 116.
116, correct.
All right. So why we did not give the additive schedule a raise last year, what you said?
It was frozen in the 16, 17 school year.
And in the years before, did we?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Should be oh, maybe it's changed.
$130,566. Does that include the 1.38?
Yes, that's all included. It was 128 last year.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve to the question.
I'll second it.
Does that include, thanks Jeff and Larry, does that include the, wasn't there 3 or 4 new positions regarding the musical?
That's in Fund 80, so that is not part of this Saturday schedule.
Okay. Oh, all right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call. Angie?
Basting,
No.
Bush,
Abstain.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Hay,
Abstain.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Steffes,
No. 322.
322.
Option education budget approval. Oh, that's the alternative school.
Yes, the alternative school,
Motion is carried, yes.
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 the alternative school has been going through a rebranding, and the name change, Options in Education, references the alternative school. So OIE is the acronym, but Options in Education. We just didn't want kids to feel that it was an alternate to what they're doing. It's actually another option to what they're doing. And so that budget is before you. It is the budget that was presented at our Monday special meeting, no changes. It does carry a halftime position that would support the alternative school and their meetings with kids and so forth. So a salary, a full-time, a half-time, benefits, rent, supplies, a lot of the utilities and so forth are included. So this budget reflects a shift in facility location from the current high school location to the location just south of town on Highway 39 next to the town hall.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Jeff to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Andy. Discussion. I think the location is going to be a great spot. I'm glad to have Amanda on board. Did we put out a posting for the halftime yet?
We will, following approval tonight, we'll be at halftime math intervention, halftime alternative school options and education support.
Will it be hard to fill that halftime?
I don't believe so. There's been people that I have talked to in circles that have dropped business cards off saying, if you ever have a position, let me know. So I think there's an interest in growing careers around options and looking at the non-traditional way to educate kids. So it's.
So will this be a licensed person then?
It would have certainly a license to do math, specifically interventions, and there is a certification you can get for alternative education. So that'd be something that we'll be looking at as a preference.
All right. Then the other part of that will be our math person at the elementary.
Correct.
Be a full-time person?
Be a full-time person, split half-time at the Options in Education School and half-time K-12 here for math intervention. It will most likely not cover the entire K-12, but we will look at where our needs are.
So one more question, will we have a built-in gain of profit of this scenario, correct?
Correct. There is some additional revenue that offsets all of the expenditures and builds in a little bit of a conservative cushion should we don't have any reason to believe it, should enrollment not come in or expenditures be more than we anticipated going into a new building. We've got some cushion there to give us a transition.
Approximately 19,000.
Correct.
Okay.
If that passes, do they count as 200? If that 200 passes?
I'm sorry, is that part of the 200 like for the state budget? Yes, that would be part of that. But part of this revenue is generated by intergovernmental agreements between the school districts that are sending kids. It will be also partially subsidized by the students that choose to open enroll into the program from another school district. So that is a possibility as well.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Basting,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Stevenson, Steffes,
Yes. Technology budget.
The technology budget is before the board. If you follow the 2017-18 column down, I would just highlight that the significant shifts are moving from purchasing of Chromebooks to a lease to a MacBook Air. That would allow us to push our existing Chromebooks down to the middle school and elementary levels. And then I would put a device in the hands of staff that would allow them to run Smart Notebook off of that device and do some programming from home with regards to their lesson plans and so forth. It would allow for a little more flexibility of the student as they have a few more apps available to them, specifically GarageBand for music and some of the art, Photoshops and so forth. iMovie are things that kids are heavily involved in, and it gives them some flexibility. There's also the ability to have a hard drive where they can drop some things down, but we would stay or remain in a Google Drive environment and use Gmail and Google Drive for our day-to-day correspondences between staff, students, and so forth.
Did you check on the Mac Pro versus the Air?
We did. The Pro is more expensive. There are a few that currently have a Pro. I have one here for administrative purposes for displaying in high def and so forth. Music is also one. Jeff David has a Pro because of the significant software he's running for music specifically. But for the day-to-day operations, an Air would most likely suffice, and the price point is significantly less.
Because they don't actually make these anymore, really to speak of, as I understand it.
The Airs?
Well, it's like they're really pushing towards the Pro. I read something earlier today, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's why we got the deal. They're not gonna be, they haven't instituted anything new on them in 5 years.
I'm not familiar with the push away from the Airs to the Pros, other than certainly the Pros have more functionality. The Airs are more of a...
Was it significantly different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
$1,000 to $1,500 per device.
And if that's
I mean, at $750, we're not saving much because you can go to Best Buy and buy them for that price. And it's like, we just think they give a school district a better deal because you're buying them direct from Apple, aren't we?
We are going through the Apple program directly, yes, for education. My understanding is that Apple pricing isn't something that can shift or that they can change at the retail level. So whether you go to Best Buy or the Apple Store, I'm pretty sure they're the same. Unless they're running a promotion, they'd have to run it across all retailers.
Well, then Apple would have to say that they're promoting, probably not Best Buy.
Well, yeah, we give a bigger break to the schools, but I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jeff to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Andy. Do, last year, with your proposed budget, did we use all the numbers? Did we
We
use?
did not.
We did not.
No, that was in the original budget, but we pared down some things out of that. So it was like 203,000 is the final budget, if I recall correctly. 203. I believe that's correct.
But the tech budget we approved was not 203
294.
or whatever. I mean, it was significantly lower. And maybe there was something that happened after, but last year when we approved the tech budget, it wasn't that big.
There were other considerations that came in later as we continued through the budget development cycle. So sometimes the approved budget isn't what makes the final budget. And again, this is our preliminary budget for the board. So you're approving the preliminary and the final, depending on what decisions you make as a board, whether there's reductions or fund balance or whatever that might be, could change this for sure.
So what you're saying is that 293 was the final budget?
That was a proposed budget last year.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
I would just like to say, I mean, is there some reason why we couldn't hold off on this item? See how much money we get from the state and then perhaps adjust the budget accordingly?
The other option moves away from a lease and goes back to a purchase. So if we don't go forward with this particular proposal, the alternative proposal is more expensive and it would cause us to kind of move in a direction I don't think is as cost efficient.
But putting aside the MacBook Airs, I mean, there's other things in this budget that could possibly be taken off.
Correct, so that's part of the budget development process, is that if we get to the point where we have to make some reductions, we would prioritize what inside of this technology budget would stay and go. The move to the devices would be one of the priorities in here. There's some other things that would have to stay, but there's certainly some things that could be reconsidered. Allowing the use of approval tonight allows us to use some of our unexpended dollars in technology to front load the lease and reduce the cost payments over the duration of the 4-year lease. So that'd be another advantage to approving.
Is some of the money that you have listed as the 16-17 technology budget, have you taken money that hasn't yet been spent and put that in 16-17?
Correct, we would use the unexpended funds from 16-17 and start to prepay down some of the lease. We would have done that with Chromebooks as well. We would have pre-purchased as many of the Chromebooks for next year as we possibly could, just to lessen the burden of the budget in the following year. But we would keep the technology purchase within the technology budget. We wouldn't cross over and use those technology dollars for any other purpose.
Any other discussion? Roll call, Angie?
Fasting.
Yes.
Bush.
Yes.
Dolphin.
Yes.
Gunlaw. Yes. Hay.
No.
Stevenson.
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes. Approval of fee schedule for 17-18.
Working with the administrative team, there is no recommendations for changes to fees. Again, we're not in a projected deficit at this time. We'll continue to monitor the state budget. At this time, the school fees that are recommended for an increase are the school lunch fees. This would not impact breakfast fees, and it would not impact meal fees. The recommendation is to increase by a nickel. There was no increase to lunches last year, so this would be the first increase in 2 years. Recommend a nickel increase.
Do they still get a credit for band and choir
When you say a credit,
for towards graduation at all?
yes, that would be as part of their elective credits.
And I have the question, why we charge when we get a credit for it?
The instruments themselves, if we're renting them, cost the district something, and it's significant for us to bear the full cost of that. So we pass some of that cost on to the families to assist with that rental program.
They remember whether they rent them or not, you know.
If you have your own instrument, you would not need to use the rental program. So you could buy your own program or your
I feel
own
like,
instrument.
I think he's talking more about the, actually not the rental fee for band or choir, he's talking about the usage fee. There's an additional, looks like for
25
both middle school and,
to get a credit.
you have to pay $15 to be.
Those are for, those are for attire cleaning. We provide them with uniforms. And we clean them.
No, that is uniform, they don't. I mean, this,
Well, I don't think it's listed as uniforms, so she's saying that they provide middle schoolers with a band polo that they are
And
able
the
to wear,
full-
and the
yeah.
gowns, band
And the
uniforms,
oh, we
tuxes.
play football, not too though.
Yeah, there's
I
a,
know there is a fee for that, they don't get credit for that.
Introduce yourself, Ash.
I'm Ashley McHugh, I'm the choir teacher here.
All right.
Hi.
Yeah. I just had a question on parents, why, when you get a credit for it, why you pay if you get it? That's fine, I mean, it's that's what's covered, but you also got rent for equipment in there also.
But I think the same is true about electives in the shop. We have a shop fee and then they pay for their wood, which would be a
True.
usage fee.
Yeah,
So I think when you get into electives, that's where the fees come in a little bit.
but they get the product when it's done, usually they matter. Don't they?
Yeah.
They get the experience.
they get the
Yeah.
beautiful voice, or the ability to play the French horn.
Yeah, go on down the road,
In
yeah,
the
that's just all I actually asked, or what I asked.
I think in the 6 years that I've been here, the only fee that I can recall that increases the yearbook fee. That was directly related to cost for printing and publishing the yearbook. I think we've held most, if not all, fees flat except for food service.
That's not mandatory to buy with it.
The yearbook, no, it's optional.
We have a motion to approve.
I'll make a
these.
motion.
Yeah, John. Motion by Jeff, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Larry.
Can I just ask a question
Sure.
regarding that? So if there was ever, I mean, there's people from the music boosters here, so I'll just, I mean, if there's ever a hardship for someone that would wanted to your question about a parent wondering why, there could be talks about covering a fee for band or choir if their
Yes.
child wanted to. Okay,
Yes.
just to-
And if I'm not mistaken, I think all students that qualify for free lunch have a waived user fee.
Okay.
That is true.
Okay, that's a good call.
Or at least discounted, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And that would go for the instructional material fees also in both
Correct.
buildings.
Mhm.
Yes.
Tell them what's-
I don't have to do it. I don't pay my bills.
Any other discussion? Roll call, Angie.
Basting,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Stefan.
Yes.
One question, how's the meals doing? How many students take them?
It is doing very well. Consistently now, we have over 200 students eating at the middle school, high school facility, which at one time ago was to break 200, and we've had almost 2 straight weeks of 200. I see a lot of interest in the variety of fruits and vegetables, and there's a good variety on the menu as well that I think is really a part of our success, and I would give a little bit of credit, if not all the credit, to Nancy for just bringing a new energy to the business, and she's working really hard at it, so thank you to Tom.
When will that budget come? Or not the budget, but
Most
the
likely in
contract?
June, if not July.
Fund 80 increase?
Working with Ashley, who's here tonight, so feel free to jump in, Ashley, if need to be correcting anything that I might state. We're looking at aligning our musical program, specifically the musical, with some of our close counterparts. I looked at Dodgeville, for example. Each one of these positions are a paid position in Dodgeville and are currently not a paid position at Mineral Point. So as we were talking about how to become a more robust program and to compensate those that are doing all the good work around the musical, there really obviously isn't a lot of funds underneath our operational budget, but we could appropriately use Fund 80, which is a community service fund. If we move this program outside of the school's umbrella into more of a community-based event, it would still allow all of our school students to participate as they currently do, but most of these positions that are additives are really community-based people that are volunteering their time to do all of the different facets that make a musical go forward. And so we would like to propose to the board that we transition our program to the Community Service Fund, Fund 80, and we would advertise or post these positions for inclusion in our fall musical next year.
And Fund 80, monies come from where, Lou?
That is levied outside of the revenue cap.
Well, last time, we were talking about this and Ashley, I don't know if you would know anything about this or if it's feasible, but could some of these positions be interns from Platinum's music department?
It's possible.
Okay.
I don't know Petville at all, and I don't know their system. I don't know what the requirements are for maybe being an intern, do you know what I mean?
Right, right.
So I don't know how they would calculate hours or what have you.
Right, or if it would be part of their course, their coursework.
Right, and that being
Yeah.
said, what would my role be as their
Advisor or?
Exactly.
Okay.
That might be a whole other conversation to have.
Conversation in that.
Mhm.
I guess I just think that we have that university down there, that, somehow we can partner with them. And I thought this may be a good chance.
I will say I had a couple of Platteville students come to offer their help 2 days before the show. It wasn't needed anymore.
Right, and how did they find out about it?
Because of the volunteers I already had. Lisa and Bill do well. They live in town. They had a child here 4 years ago. And they volunteer their time, a lot of it. And they were my customer and my set designer and technical director.
So would have that been something that if you would have reached out to the department, that you may have gotten more volunteers?
It's possible, but again, I have to look at what they're needing as an intern, as to
No,
what
but I
they're...
mean just for volunteers. I mean, you've got students from Platteville if the information would have been there, put out there?
I kind of want to say I have to talk to their directors because I don't know what their schedule is like as well. And we have a very specific schedule being an extracurricular. And I'm also dealing with students, and I have to talk to parents and see if they trust them students with
Right.
interns.
Right.
So that's a whole other spiel. They definitely trust the adult volunteers of this community because they know them. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't want them to be volunteers anymore. I think that's kind of where I'm going with this. Because it's kind of ridiculous, quite frankly. So.
Yeah, the Do-Wells do so much for the productions, so I think this is the right thing to do. So I,
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I'll second it, anything from me is
So we
okay.
got a motion and a second by Lisa. Roll call, Angie.
Basting,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
No.
Hay,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes. Policy 144, 142, school attorney.
This policy was before the board last session. There have been no revisions to district legal counsel, and in its second reading, I'd recommend approval.
I'll move we approve it.
Motion by Lisa to approve,
Second it.
second by Julie. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Policy 144.
144 is the appointment of a board representative. Again, this was forwarded with no suggestion for revision. It's in its second reading. I would move to approve or recommend approval.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve it.
Motion by Lisa to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
151 has just some small editorial revisions. This is the policy that was brought forth last meeting. Policy additions are in yellow and the strikes are out. And after review of the policy committee, they recommend board approval.
We have a motion.
I'll move.
Motion by Lisa to approve. Second?
I'll second.
Second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Last policy is policy 526. Again, this was a new policy. It's required by state statute to have this policy in place. There are no additions or deletions between the last meeting and this meeting. Recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
I'll move.
Motion by Julie. Second?
Second.
By Andy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of open enrollment.
Remember, in January, we had a meeting where we discussed the number of open enrollment students that we would take. Based on that meeting, we now have closed the open enrollment application period, and there's both students that have requested to come into the district, as well as 3 students that have gone or requested to leave out of the district. So the only piece I would share with you that's of note is CYD or CYW in this column means they're currently attending our school district under a year waiver, so they get a 1-year waiver before they're allowed to open enroll in. So the CYWs are students that were already in our count at the time in January where we made the determination of how many seats we would take. And we would honor those requests to continue in Mineral Point as they're kind of already underneath our caseload. So then the question is, how many would we take in other capacities? There is 4 students that we would deny, and the first is a denial because the students require contracted services that are not currently in-house. We would have to contract with new services outside of our staffing, and that would be an undue burden for us. And that is a 1st grader and a 5th grader that have significant needs requiring those contracted services. The other is in 8th grade. We have 2 students that are in 8th grade that are not currently a year waiver student. And because of space, lack of space available, we would deny those two 8th graders access through open enrollment. So my recommendation would be to approve all of the open enrollments in and out with the exception of the 4 students that I just mentioned.
How many new ones in, not counting those 4?
Would be.
$30 total. Of those 30, $17 are already here under a current year waiver, if I counted those up right.
Did we get the IEP for the 5th grader for Belmont?
We did, yes. That
4 moving out.
That was a Thursday when we had to put the packet together.
4 leaving?
3.
Are any of those new?
5th, I think,
2 4Ks and an 8th grader. None of those are,
I think the ones that, the column that says currently attends Mineral Point, if there's a blank, there's 15 of them that are blank, that means they're not here under a current year waiver, they'd be new.
correct.
So of those, there's 4 that are being denied, so there would be 11 new open enrolling.
And again, this is just by state statute, we have to notify of acceptance or denial. We really, the parents have the wherewithal to actually send or to hold back their student in their current residing district. So even though you would have a net of 11, for example, that's not saying that we will have 11 open enrollees. We will not know until the first day of school who actually decides to attend.
So why no on the 8th graders?
We currently are at capacity. In 8th grade, that's our largest class.
Current 7th grade going into 8th.
Yeah, 60?
It's that big class.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a big one.
That is here. So this is what we approved in January. And if you recall, that 8th grade class already has 56 kids or class sizes of 28. And so that would be adding an additional burden to an already full class. So those 7th and 8th grade are the 2 areas along with 1st grade that the board took action to limit open enrollment into.
Okay.
If there was, let's say we had a current 8th grader or a 7th grader that was moving out for some reason, could you go back to Dodgeville and say we have room for 1 or 2 of these kids? Or is it, once we make the decision tonight, it's done next year?
Right. Otherwise, people may have applied if they had known that it might be an if then maybe kind of a situation. So the board takes action in January. The open enrollment process follows that, knowing what the board will or will not accept. And then at that point, we act on it by state statute by June and give them notification if they are not accepted.
Sorry, I can understand if we have to hire additional help for special needs kids, but to deny two kids based on our room.
Would be 30 in a class? Would be over 30 in a class, all right?
But there's certainly more classes than 2 in the 8th grade, isn't there?
No, there's only 2 teachers, or I'm sorry, there's only 1 staff member that teaches, or 2 staff members that teach each
You have
subject.
1 math teacher, you have 1 English teacher, 1 social studies teacher,
Teaching the
1
2
science
grades.
teacher.
Teaching the 2 grades.
You have additional reading help, but it's only because of that large class.
One thing that would be possible, and what complicates this, is this family has siblings that also have been enrolled in 4th grade, which we'd accept the 4th grade but not the 8th grade. However, this would preclude them from reapplying next year as a freshman. When we have a little more flexibility in our scheduling, it might allow them to come in at a later date.
So are the 2 from the same family?
There are 2 4th graders and 2 8th graders from the same family that requested open enrollment. Correct.
You mean 2 different families?
Same family.
Jeff to approve. Give it a second.
That's more wheels in that class.
Second by Larry. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I vote against. Approval of infographic.
The final infographic was close in the board packet. The final is here before the board with some subtle changes, more around the change in revenue and expenditures, enrollment, and this part here down in the corner, the state funds diverted, which reflects the amount of money that comes off at the top of our revenue, our shared revenue, before we even get to the money. 60,000 in 2016-17 was diverted to the independent charter schools that come from the state, mostly in the Milwaukee-Racine area. Roughly about 1.4% of our budget in the general aid formula comes off the top. So we certainly could have used that 60,000 in some way that would have supported our students, but that is the state funding formula, so we thought it wise to reflect that, because that's often a question, is where does the money go? So we have the final version here in front of you. I worked with Susan closely to get down. Page 2 didn't change much with regards to our academic accomplishments and achievements. If the board gives a final approval, we'll post this out on our website and get it out in front of our masses to help explain our financial situation here at Mineral Point.
I'll move to approve it.
Motion by Lisa, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Julie.
Any discussions for enhancements or anything else?
Will it get mailed to our homeowners?
Yeah, we could insert it as part of a blue and white, or white and blue review. It could just be a page that's in there. So it'd be the first way to get it out there.
Any other questions, discussion?
Well, it looks good, I appreciate Susan.
Yeah.
You know, anytime she put in, it looks good.
She volunteered.
Yeah,
It was her time.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Superintendent's report.
Just a couple items. The application for the kindergarten position currently has 34 applicants. There's multiple candidates that have considerable attributes and come with experience, so we feel good about the pool of applicants to fill the kindergarten vacancy. In the essence of time, I think that's about it I would share now. Is there anything else that the board was curious about?
At this point, we will look for a motion to go back into closed session.
And then are we going back to open after that? And we gotta take the photo.
I'll make a motion. A motion by Jeff, to go into closed session. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Larry. Take a photo.